The markets of Nexus 7 were always crowded, but today felt different. Taman navigated through the press of alien bodies, each one taller and more intimidating than the last. His worn cargo jacket marked him as what he was, a small-time human trader trying to make enough credits to keep his ship flying. Most aliens didn't even look at him. Humans were still newcomers in this part of space, barely worth noticing. He had just sold his cargo of medical supplies for less than he hoped. The Vraxian merchant had seen his desperation and lowered the price. Taman accepted it because he had no choice. His ship needed fuel, and the docking fees were due tomorrow. This was life on the frontier, always one bad deal away from being stranded. The shout caught his attention first. Then came the sound of something heavy hitting metal. Taman turned toward the noise and saw 3 large aliens surrounding someone smaller. The victim was wearing elegant robes that looked expensive, now torn and dirty. As the aliens laughed and kicked, Taman saw her face. She was Korean, with the distinctive silver markings that identified her people. Other traders walked past without stopping. Some looked, but nobody helped. Taman understood why. The attackers wore the red bands of Kravix's organization. Everyone knew that name. Merchant Lord Kravix controlled half the trade routes in this sector. Crossing him meant blacklisting or worse. Taman should have kept walking. He knew that. His sister Jiwoo would be angry when she heard about this. But he couldn't. Something in his chest wouldn't let him turn away while someone was being hurt. He moved quickly before his common sense could stop him. The nearest attacker was reaching for the woman's bag when Taman grabbed his arm. The alien spun around, surprised that anyone would interfere. Up close, he was massive, easily twice Taman's size. "Let her go," Taman said, keeping his voice steady despite his racing heart. The attacker laughed. "A human? You must be stupid. Walk away while you can." I said let her go. What happened next was fast. Taman had learned to fight growing up on Earth's lower districts. He wasn't strong like these aliens, but he was quick. He moved low, hitting pressure points that worked on most species. The first attacker went down with a grunt. The second one swung at Taman, but he ducked and swept the alien's legs. The third attacker pulled out a knife. That changed things. Taman grabbed the Korean woman's hand and ran. She stumbled but kept up. Behind them, he heard the attackers shouting threats about what Kravix would do to them. They ran through the market, taking turns at random until Taman was sure they had lost their pursuers. He led the woman to his ship, the Stellar Crane. It wasn't much to look at, but it was his home. Once inside, he locked the door and turned to check on her. She was bleeding from a cut on her forehead. Her elegant clothes were ruined and she looked shaken. Taman went to his medical supplies and pulled out what he needed. These were supposed to last him 3 months, but he couldn't leave her injured. "Let me help you," he said gently. She flinched when he approached, but then held still as he cleaned and bandaged her wound. His hands were steady and he worked carefully. "Why did you help me?" she asked. Her voice was cultured, educated. "You must know what those markings mean. Kravix will come after you now." Taman shrugged. "I couldn't just walk past." "Where do you need to go?" "The Korean outpost at Sanctum Station." "But I have no money to pay you." "They took everything." "I wasn't asking for payment," Taman said. "Sanctum Station is 3 days from here." "I can take you." She stared at him like he had said something impossible. "You would use your fuel and risk further retaliation from Kravix for nothing?" "It's not nothing," Taman replied. "You need help." "That's enough reason." He stood up and headed for the cockpit. "You should rest. Take the cabin. I'll sleep in the cargo bay." As the Stellar Crane lifted off from Nexus 7, Ambassador Velthera sat in the small cabin and tried to understand what had just happened. She was one of the highest-ranking diplomats in the Korean Dominion. She had negotiated treaties with dozens of species. But this human had confused her more than any complex political situation ever had. Humans were supposed to be primitive. They had only joined the galactic community 50 years ago. Their technology was adequate but not impressive. Their military was small. The Korean reports described them as insignificant, barely worth diplomatic attention. Yet this one had risked his life and livelihood for a stranger. Over the next 3 days, Velthara learned more about humans than any official report had taught her. Taman shared his food without hesitation, even though she could see his supplies were limited. He told her stories about Earth, about his family, about his sister who was an engineer. He spoke with warmth about people he clearly loved. On the second day, she asked him about human culture. He explained their concept of helping strangers, how his parents had taught him that kindness wasn't a transaction. You didn't help people because they could repay you. You helped because it was right. But what if the person you help is ungrateful? Velthara asked. What if they use your kindness against you? Taman thought about this while adjusting the ship's course. Then that says something about them, not about you. You can't control how others act. You can only control what you do. I'd rather be the person who helps than the person who walks away. Such a simple philosophy, Velthara thought. Yet also profound. Her people calculated everything. Every action had an expected return. Every relationship was measured in advantages gained and lost. This human approached life completely differently, and she found it both strange and oddly admirable. On the third day, they reached Sanctum Station. Taman guided his ship to the Corian docking area. Velthara had contacted her people, and a security team was waiting. They looked shocked when they saw her condition, and even more shocked when they saw her human rescuer. Before she left the ship, Velthara turned to Taman. She pulled out a small data chip. This contains a secure communication code. If you ever need help, use it. You will reach me directly. Taman took the chip but smiled. I'm just glad you're safe. You don't owe me anything. In my culture, debts of honor are serious matters, Velthara said formally. You saved my life and asked nothing in return. That is not something my people forget. She left the ship with her security team, but she kept looking back. Taman waved once, then began his pre-flight checks. He had done what he thought was right. Now he needed to figure out how to avoid Kravix's attention and make enough money to survive the next month. As the stellar crane departed, Velthara stood in the station and watched it go. Something had changed in her. She had spent years believing the Corian assessment of humanity was correct. Now she wondered what else her people had gotten wrong. This one human had shown her something unexpected, that perhaps strength wasn't just about power and technology. Perhaps true strength was choosing kindness even when it cost you everything. She made a decision then. She would learn more about humans, and if Timon ever used that communication code, she would make sure her debt was repaid. Among her people, honor demanded nothing less. The refueling depot appeared on Timon's sensors like a small metal flower in the darkness of space. It wasn't much, just a collection of fuel tanks and a basic docking platform. But right now it looked like salvation. His fuel reserves were critically low. Another few hours and he would have been stranded. As he approached, his proximity alarm started beeping. 3 ships had just appeared on his sensors, coming in fast from different directions. Tamon's stomach dropped. These weren't traders or patrol vessels. They were moving in an attack formation. He recognized the configuration from the red bands painted on their hulls. Kravix's enforcers, Tamon's mind raced. He couldn't outrun them, not with his damaged engine. He couldn't fight 3 ships with his light cargo hauler's minimal weapons. The refueling depot wouldn't help him because it was automated and had no security. He was trapped, and Kravix's people knew it. His communication system crackled to life. A voice that sounded pleased with itself spoke. Human trader Timon, you were warned about interfering with Merchant Lord Kravix's business. Now you will learn the price of that mistake. Timon didn't bother responding. He checked his weapon systems even though he knew they were useless against 3 combat vessels. At least he could go down fighting. His thoughts went to Jiwoo. She would be devastated when she heard. He wished he could tell her one more time that he loved her, that he was proud of who she had become. The enforcer ships charged their weapons. Taman could see the energy building on his sensors. In a few seconds they would fire, and the stellar crane would be nothing but debris floating in space. He closed his eyes for a moment, accepting what was coming. Then something impossible happened. His sensors went crazy as a massive ship dropped out of hyperspace directly between him and the enforcers. It was huge, at least 10 times the size of Kravix's vessels. Its hull was marked with the elegant symbols of the Korean Dominion. This was a diplomatic vessel, heavily armed and carrying enough firepower to destroy everything in the area. A new voice came through his communication system, and Taman recognized it immediately. Velthara, this is Ambassador Velthara of the Korean Dominion. The human Taman is under our protection. Any hostile action against him will be considered an act of war against the Korean people. The silence that followed was heavy with shock. Taman stared at his screen, unable to process what was happening. The Korean ship was positioning itself as a shield. protecting him with its bulk and firepower. This was unprecedented. Diplomatic vessels didn't get involved in trade disputes. They certainly didn't threaten war over a single merchant. The enforcer who had spoken before sounded nervous now. "Ambassador, this is a private matter. The human violated agreements with Merchant Lord Kravix. We are simply enforcing those agreements." "Taman committed no violation," Velthara replied, and her voice was cold as ice. "He helped someone in need. Among my people, that creates a debt of honor. I am now fulfilling that debt. You have 30 seconds to leave this area, or my weapon systems will fulfill it in a more direct manner." The enforcers didn't need 30 seconds. They jumped to hyperspace within 15, fleeing from the superior firepower and the diplomatic nightmare they had almost created. Attacking someone under Quarian protection would bring their entire military down on Kravix's organization. No profit was worth that risk. Taman sat in his pilot seat, shaking slightly from the adrenaline. His communication panel chimed with an incoming call. He accepted it with trembling hands. Velthara's face appeared on his screen, and she looked both relieved and stern. "You could have used my contact code," she said. "You almost died because you were too proud to ask for help." "I didn't help you to create a debt," Taman managed to say. His voice was rough with emotion. "I helped you because it was right." "I know," Velthara said, and her expression softened. "That is exactly why I am here. Your sister contacted me. Well, I contacted her first. We have been monitoring Kravix's movements. When we learned of this ambush, I came immediately." "Jiwoo?" Taman felt a surge of affection for his sister. Of course she would find a way to help him even when he was too stubborn to help himself. "She is remarkable," Velthara said, "much like her brother. Please dock with my ship. We need to discuss your situation properly." An hour later, Taman sat in a conference room that was more luxurious than anywhere he had been in years. Velthara sat across from him, along with 2 of her security advisors. They had provided him with food and water, which he accepted gratefully. His hands had finally stopped shaking. "Merchant Lord Kravix will not stop," Velthara explained. "Today I could protect you because I had warning and resources. But he is patient. He will wait and try again. You cannot live like this, always looking over your shoulder." "What are my options?" Taman asked. He already knew the answer, but he wanted to hear it spoken. "You could accept asylum in Korean space," one of the advisors suggested. "We would protect you there. You could continue trading in our sectors." Taman shook his head before the advisor finished speaking. "I won't run. This is my home, these trade routes, this part of space. If I leave because some criminal threatens me, then he wins. I can't accept that." Velthara had expected this answer. She had learned enough about humans to understand their stubbornness when it came to principles. It was both admirable and frustrating. "Then we need a different solution, one that deals with Kravix permanently." "You can't go to war with him over me," Taman protested. "That's not reasonable." "War may not be necessary," Velthara said thoughtfully. "Kravix operates through fear and violence, but his organization is built on business relationships. If we can damage those relationships, we can weaken his power, and your sister has given us an interesting advantage." She activated a holographic display showing network diagrams and financial records. "Jiwoo managed to access Kravix's communication systems. She has provided us with evidence of illegal activities, corruption, and violations of multiple trade agreements. This information, properly used, could destroy his credibility with his business partners." Taman stared at the data floating in the air. His sister had done all this. He felt pride mixed with concern. Hacking Kravix's systems was dangerous. If the Merchant Lord found out, Jiwoo could become a target too. As if reading his thoughts, Velthara added, "Your sister is safe on Earth, protected by human security, and she is quite skilled at covering her tracks. Kravix does not know who compromised his systems. So what happens now?" Taman asked. "Now we use this information strategically," Velthara replied. "But I want you to understand something important. Kravix will escalate when he learns his organization is being attacked. He may try to strike at you again or at your family. This will get more dangerous before it ends." Taman thought about this for a long moment. He could still choose to run, to accept asylum and leave this all behind. It would be safer, easier, but it wouldn't be right. Kravix hurt people, threatened them, killed them. Someone needed to stop him. And if Taman ran now, he would spend the rest of his life knowing he had the chance to make a difference and chose safety instead. "I'm not running," he said firmly. "Do what you need to do. I'll deal with whatever comes." Velthara looked at him with something approaching respect. You are either very brave or very foolish. Perhaps both. But I am beginning to understand that this is simply how humans are. You do not abandon your principles, even when it would be logical to do so. Some things are more important than logic, Taemin said. You taught me that when you came here to protect me. You could have just sent a message, warned me away. Instead, you risked a diplomatic incident to honor your debt. That wasn't logical either. Velthara smiled, a rare expression for her species. Perhaps you are teaching me to be more human, she said. And perhaps that is not a bad thing. 6 months had passed since the confrontation with Kravix, and the galaxy had changed in small but significant ways. News of what happened spread quickly through trading networks and diplomatic channels. The story grew with each telling, but the core facts remained the same. A human had helped an alien diplomat, and when that human was threatened, 2 entire species had mobilized to protect him. Taemin was back to trading, but his life was very different now. The stellar crane had been completely rebuilt with Corian technology, a gift from Velthara's government in recognition of his service. His engine no longer made grinding noises. His weapon systems actually worked, and most importantly, stations that had once refused to serve him now welcomed him with respect. He docked at Nexus 7, the same station where everything had started. The market looked the same, but the way aliens treated him was completely different. They moved aside when he walked past. Merchants offered him fair prices without trying to cheat him. Some even asked for his advice on dealing with humans as if his opinion suddenly mattered. It made him uncomfortable sometimes. He was the same person he had always been. He had just done what felt right. But to everyone else, he was the human who earned a Corian debt of honor, the traitor whose sister could hack military networks, the man who had stood against Kravix and survived. He had become a legend without meaning to. He met Velthara at a restaurant on the station, a place that served food from dozens of different worlds. She looked as elegant as always in her diplomatic robes, though now he could see the warmth in her expression that had once been hidden behind formal politeness. They had become friends, something neither of them had expected. How is your sister? Velthara asked as they settled into their seats. Thriving, Taemin replied with a smile. Earth's intelligence services recruited her. She's teaching them her techniques for network analysis and security. She also got promoted twice already. I think she's happier than she's been in years. She has remarkable talent, Velthara said. When she disabled Kravix's entire fleet, our military analysts were impressed. Some even wanted to recruit her themselves, but Earth made it clear she was staying with them. They ordered food and talked about the changes happening across the frontier. Human traders were being treated with more respect now. Captain Bora had been promoted and given command of a larger vessel, specifically tasked with protecting human merchants in disputed territories. The Earth Defense Force had gained a reputation for responding quickly and decisively when their people were threatened. Your people surprised everyone, Velthara said. We thought we understood humans. We were wrong. You appeared peaceful, focused on trade and exploration, but when pushed you revealed capabilities that no one expected. Taemin considered this. We're not hiding our capabilities on purpose. We just don't show everything we have unless we need to. Why reveal all your cards when you're still learning to play the game? A wise strategy, Velthara admitted. But it is more than just strategy, isn't it? Your people have a way of building connections, of turning acquaintances into allies and allies into family. That is your real strength. She leaned forward, her expression serious. I have been meeting with other species, trying to explain what I learned about humanity. Most don't understand. They still see you as transaction-based, like everyone else. They think your alliance with us is about military advantage or trade benefits. But it's not, Taemin asked. No, Velthara said firmly. It is about something deeper. When you helped me, you didn't calculate the benefits. You just helped. That created a bond that goes beyond politics or profit. And when my people saw how humans responded when you were threatened, they understood that these bonds have real power. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Other species measure relationships in advantages gained and lost. Humans measure them in loyalty earned and given. That is why you will either become the most powerful diplomatic force in the galaxy, or the most dangerous enemy anyone could make. Taemin felt the weight of that statement. He was just a merchant trying to make a living, but he represented something larger now, whether he wanted to or not. Every interaction he had with aliens, Every decision he made would be seen through the lens of what happened with Kravix. "I just want to trade and help people when I can," he said quietly. "I don't want to be a symbol or a weapon." "I know," Velthara said gently. "That is exactly what makes you valuable. You don't seek power or recognition. You simply do what you believe is right. But that authenticity is what others respond to. They see that you are genuine, and they want to earn that same loyalty you showed me." Their food arrived, and they ate while discussing lighter topics. Velthara told him about the formal alliance talks between Earth and the Korean Dominion. The negotiations were going well, with both sides finding surprising common ground. She would be Earth's primary contact, which pleased her. She had developed genuine respect for human culture and wanted to help others understand it. After the meal, they walked through the market together. Taman noticed how other species watched them, how they saw a human and a Korean diplomat walking as equals, as friends. It sent a message without words. Humans were not just newcomers to be dismissed. They were partners who kept their word and protected those who treated them well. A young alien approached them nervously. She was from a species Taimin didn't recognize, with green scales and 4 arms. She addressed him directly. "Merchant Taman, I am sorry to interrupt, but I need advice." Taman stopped and gave her his full attention. "What's wrong?" She explained that local criminals were threatening her small trading business, demanding protection money. She couldn't pay, but she was afraid to refuse. Other traders had told her to talk to the human merchant, that he might help. Taman listened carefully, then contacted Captain Bora directly. Within an hour, an Earth Defense Force vessel had dispatched security to the station, and the criminals found themselves facing serious consequences. The young merchant was overwhelmed with gratitude. "I will repay this kindness," she promised. "Whatever you need, whenever you need it, just ask." Taiman shook his head. "I don't need repayment. Just do the same for someone else when you can. Help the next person who needs it. That's how we build a better galaxy." After she left, Velthara looked at Taimin with an expression that might have been admiration. "You are doing it again. Creating bonds, building alliances without even trying." "I'm just helping someone," Taimin protested. "Yes," Velthara agreed, "and that is exactly the point. You help because it is right, not because of what you might gain, but those you help will remember. They will tell others, and slowly, human by human, interaction by interaction, your species is changing how this galaxy works." She paused at the entrance to her ship. "I am writing a report for my government about human-Korean relations. May I include something you said to me during our first journey together?" "What did I say?" "That you would rather be the person who helps than the person who walks away," Velthara replied. "I think that summarizes human philosophy better than anything else I could write." Taman smiled. "Sure, you can use it, though I'm not sure it's that profound. It's just how I was raised." "That is what makes it profound," Velthara said. "It is not philosophy or strategy. It is simply who you are, and who humans are." She entered her ship, and Taman returned to the stellar crane. As he settled into the pilot's seat and began his pre-flight checks, he thought about everything that had happened. He had just wanted to help someone in trouble. He never imagined it would lead to this, to alliances between species, to military operations, to becoming some kind of symbol. But maybe that was how change happened. Not through grand gestures or brilliant strategies, but through small acts of kindness that rippled outward in ways you couldn't predict. You helped one person and they helped you back. Then others joined in, and suddenly you had a movement, a community, something bigger than any individual. His communication panel chimed with a new message. It was from Jiwoo. She had sent him a news article about the Earth-Korean alliance officially being signed. The accompanying image showed human and Korean diplomats shaking hands, with Velthara prominently featured. His sister had added a note. "Look what you started, big brother. Mom and Dad would be proud." Taemin felt tears sting his eyes. His parents had passed away years ago, but they had taught him the values he still lived by. Help others. Stand up for what's right. Treat everyone with respect. Simple lessons, but apparently they had been enough to change the galaxy. He set course for his next destination, a mining colony that needed medical supplies. It was routine work, nothing special, but he did it with the same care and attention he gave everything, because you never knew when a simple trade run might turn into something more. You never knew who you might meet or how your actions might ripple outward. And somewhere in the galaxy, countless beings were learning the same lesson that Velthara had learned months ago. Treat a human well, and they will repay you in ways you won't expect. But more than that, they will remember you, stand by you, and fight for you when you need it most. That was the human way, and the galaxy was slowly beginning to understand what that meant. Merchant Lord Kravix was not used to being humiliated. When his enforcers returned with news that a Korean diplomatic vessel had protected the human, his rage was cold and calculating. He had built his criminal empire on reputation, on the fear that came from knowing he always followed through on his threats. If word spread that one small human traitor had defied him and survived, others would think they could do the same. He decided to escalate. It wasn't enough to kill Taemin anymore. He needed to send a message that would echo across every trade route in the sector. He would destroy the human's family on Earth. Let everyone see what happened when you crossed Kravix. Not just you died, but everyone you cared about. He assembled a larger force, mercenaries, corrupt officials, and his best enforcers. The plan was simple and brutal. Strike at the sister on Earth while simultaneously attacking Taemin again. Even with Korean protection, the human couldn't be in two places at once. He would have to watch his family die, knowing he had caused it by being foolish enough to help a stranger. What Kravix didn't know was that Jiwoo had been monitoring his communications since she first hacked his systems. She had seen the orders going out. She knew about the mercenaries heading to Earth. She knew about the second attack force mobilizing to go after her brother, and she knew she needed help that went beyond just Velthara's diplomatic vessel. She contacted Captain Bora of the Earth Defense Force. Bora was 42 years old, experienced and deeply skeptical of civilians claiming they had evidence of alien conspiracies. She had heard it all before. But when Jiwoo showed her the intercepted communications, the deployment orders, and the threat assessment, Bora's skepticism turned to cold fury. These coordinates, Bora said, pointing at the data on her screen. This is residential Sector 7. That's where you live, isn't it? Yes, Jiwoo confirmed. They're planning to attack within 48 hours. They think humans won't respond quickly enough to stop them. Bora's expression hardened. She had joined the defense force to protect people like Jiwoo, human citizens who were just trying to live their lives. The idea that some alien crime lord thought he could strike at Earth itself, target civilians on their homeworld, made her blood boil. They're wrong about how quickly we respond. Very wrong. Within 6 hours, Captain Bora had mobilized her patrol vessel and called in every favor she was owed. 3 more ships joined her, captains who had served with her before and trusted her judgment. They positioned themselves in orbit over Sector 7, waiting. But Bora wasn't satisfied with just defense. She wanted to send a message of her own. She contacted Velthara directly, using the diplomatic channels. The Korean ambassador was surprised but impressed by the speed of the human military response. They coordinated their plans, sharing intelligence and positioning their forces. What had started as one human helping one alien was turning into a coordinated military operation between 2 species. Taemin, still aboard Velthara's diplomatic vessel, watched the preparations with growing amazement. Ships were moving into position. Communications were flying back and forth in codes he couldn't understand. All of this was happening because of him, because he had stopped to help someone in a market 2 months ago. Captain Bora's face appeared on the communication screen in front of him. She looked tough and professional, exactly what Taemin imagined a military commander should look like. "Merchant Taemin," she said. "I'm Captain Bora, Earth Defense Force. Your sister showed me what's happening. I want you to know that we don't leave our people unprotected." "I never meant for any of this," Taemin said. "I just helped someone. I didn't think it would lead to this." "That's exactly why we're here," Bora replied. "You did the right thing. You helped someone who needed it. Then she returned the favor by protecting you. Now we're returning the favor by protecting both of you. That's how this works. That's how humans work." She paused and her expression became harder. "But I want you to understand something else. We're not just defending. We're ending this threat. Kravix made this personal when he decided to attack Earth citizens. We don't forget when someone threatens our people, and we don't stop until the threat is gone." Velthara was listening to this conversation, and she felt something shift in her understanding. She had thought the rescue at the refueling depot was impressive. But this was different. This was humanity mobilizing to protect one of their own, and doing it with a speed and efficiency that surprised her. They weren't just reactive. They were strategic, coordinated, and absolutely determined. When Kravix's mercenaries arrived at Earth, expecting minimal resistance, they found 4 military vessels waiting for them. Captain Bora didn't even bother with warnings. She broadcast one simple message: "You came to hurt our people. Now you deal with us." The battle was brief and devastating. The human ships moved with practiced precision, using tactics that the mercenaries had never encountered. They didn't just shoot. They outmaneuvered, flanked, and systematically disabled every hostile vessel. Not destroyed, disabled. They wanted prisoners who could testify about who had sent them. Meanwhile, Jiwoo was doing her part. From her apartment, now heavily guarded by Defense Force personnel, she launched her own attack. She had spent weeks learning Kravix's systems. Now she used that knowledge to create chaos. Enemy ships suddenly found their targeting systems offline. Their communications were jammed. Their navigation computers gave them false coordinates. She broadcast a message on all of Kravix's frequencies. "This is what one human engineer can do to your entire network. Imagine what happens when you make all of us angry. You should have left my brother alone." In the space near Taemin's last known location, Kravix's second attack force was facing similar problems. Velthera's diplomatic vessel had been joined by 2 Korean military cruisers. But what shocked everyone was the arrival of additional human ships, traders, and independent haulers who had heard what was happening and volunteered to help. These weren't military vessels. They were cargo haulers and mining ships, just like Taemin's stellar crane. But their pilots were humans who believed in standing together. One of them hailed Taemin directly. "We heard you helped someone and got targeted for it." "That's not right. So we're here. We look after our own." Taemin felt his eyes sting with emotion. He had thought he was alone, struggling by himself against impossible odds. But he wasn't alone. He had never been alone. This was what it meant to be human, to be part of something bigger than yourself, to know that when you needed help, people would come. Kravix's forces retreated in confusion and disarray. They had expected to face one merchant and maybe a diplomatic escort. Instead, they found themselves outnumbered and outmaneuvered by a coordinated response that crossed species and military boundaries. The merchant lord's reputation for being unstoppable was shattered in a matter of hours. Captain Bora captured Kravix's flagship intact. The merchant lord himself was aboard, and his shock was visible when he was brought before her. "You don't understand," he said. "This was just business. The human interfered with my operations." "No," Bora replied coldly. "You don't understand. You made this personal. You threatened a human citizen and his family. You thought we were weak because we're new to your galactic community. You were wrong." She leaned forward and her voice was quiet but carried absolute certainty. "Every species in this galaxy is going to learn the same lesson today. Humans remember kindness and we repay it. But we also remember threats and we end them. You wanted to make an example of one human traitor? Instead, you became an example of what happens when you underestimate us." Kravix was turned over to galactic authorities, along with evidence of his crimes gathered by Jiwoo's hacking and Velthera's intelligence network. His organization was dismantled by coordinated action from multiple species who were suddenly very interested in cooperating with these surprisingly capable humans. Aboard the Korean diplomatic vessel, Velthera sat in her quarters and reviewed everything that had happened. She had thought she understood humans after Taemin saved her, but she had only seen part of the picture. Now she understood the full scope of what it meant to earn a human's friendship, or to make them your enemy. She began writing her report to the Korean Council. The title she chose was simple: Reassessment of Human Capabilities and Strategic Value. It was time her people understood what she had learned. Humanity wasn't just another minor species. They were something new, something that could change the balance of power in the galaxy, and the Koreans needed to decide if they wanted humans as allies or competitors. 2 months had passed since Taemin helped the Korean diplomat, and his life had become much harder. Word had spread quickly about what he did. Kravix's people made sure everyone knew that helping someone who crossed the merchant lord was a mistake. Now most stations refused to do business with Taemin. The few traders who would still deal with him charged triple the normal prices. His ship was falling apart. The engine made a grinding noise that worried him every time he jumped to hyperspace. He needed new parts, but he didn't have the credits. His food supplies were running low. Soon, he would have to make difficult choices about what to fix and what to live without. The communication code Velthara gave him sat in his data storage, unused. Taemin had thought about calling her many times, especially when things got really bad. But he couldn't do it. He had helped her because it was right, not because he expected something in return. Using that code now would feel like he had only helped her to get a favor later. His sister Jiwoo called him almost every day from Earth. She was worried, and her worry made her angry. Today's call was particularly intense. "You need to ask for help," Jiwoo said through the video screen. Her face was tight with frustration. "That diplomat gave you her contact code for a reason." "I can't," Taemin replied. He was in the cargo bay trying to repair a coolant leak with spare parts. It wouldn't be right. "What isn't right is you starving in space because you're too proud to ask for help." Jiwoo's voice got louder. "You saved her life. She wants to help you." "I didn't save her life to create a debt," Taemin said quietly. "I did it because someone needed help. That's all." Jiwoo made a frustrated sound but didn't argue further. She knew her brother too well. Once Taemin decided something was right or wrong, nothing could change his mind. After the call ended, she sat in her apartment on Earth and stared at her computer screens. She was one of the best engineers and programmers in her sector. If her brother wouldn't ask for help, maybe she could find another way. Meanwhile, on the Korean homeworld, Ambassador Velthara was having her own problems. She couldn't stop thinking about Taemin. His simple kindness had challenged everything she thought she knew about humans. She had started researching their history, their culture, their way of seeing the world. What she found surprised her. Humans had a pattern. When someone earned their trust, they didn't just remember it. They built on it. They formed bonds that lasted generations. They protected those they considered friends with an intensity that other species found strange. The Korean reports had labeled this as primitive tribalism. Velthara was beginning to think it was something else entirely. She used her position to access intelligence networks. What she discovered made her angry. Kravix had blacklisted Taemin across multiple sectors. The human was struggling to survive, all because he had helped her. This was unacceptable. Among her people, a debt of honor was sacred. She had told Taemin this, and she meant it. But Velthara was also intelligent enough to know that Taemin wouldn't contact her. She had seen his pride, his principles. He would rather suffer than feel like he was using their connection for personal gain, so she would have to approach this differently. She began searching for Taemin's family. It took some effort, but she found Jiwoo's information. The young woman was brilliant, with credentials that impressed even Korean standards. Velthara sent a carefully worded message identifying herself and requesting a private conversation. Jiwoo's first response was suspicious. She had heard about her brother helping a Korean, but she didn't know much beyond that. When Velthara explained the situation and what she wanted to do, Jiwoo's suspicion turned to interest. "You want to help him," Jiwoo said during their video call, "but he won't let you help him directly." "Exactly," Velthara confirmed. "Among my people, we repay our debts. Your brother saved my life. I cannot allow him to suffer because of that choice." Jiwoo studied the alien diplomat through the screen. She saw sincerity there and something else. Respect. This powerful alien respected her brother. That meant something. "What did you have in mind?" They talked for 2 hours. Jiwoo provided information about human trade networks and Kravix's operations. Velthara shared intelligence from Korean sources. Together, they began forming a plan. It wasn't just about helping Taemin anymore. It was about dealing with Kravix's criminal organization properly. As they worked, something unexpected happened. They became friends. Jiwoo had never worked with an alien before, and she found Velthara's logical approach balanced well with her own intuitive style. Velthara discovered that she enjoyed Jiwoo's directness and fierce loyalty to her brother. It reminded her of Taemin himself. "Your brother mentioned you were an engineer," Velthara said during one of their planning sessions. "He spoke of you with great pride." Jiwoo smiled, though her eyes were sad. "He always supported me, even when our parents didn't understand why I wanted to work with computers instead of getting a traditional job. He sold his first ship to pay for my education. He sacrificed for you," Velthara observed. "That's what humans do," Jiwoo replied. "We take care of our own. My brother helped you because you needed help. Now I'm helping him for the same reason. It's how we're built." Velthara filed that information away. This concept of loyalty, A family bonds that transcended logic and self-interest was fascinating. She had read about it in her research, but experiencing it directly was different. These humans didn't just talk about their values. They lived them, even when it cost them dearly. Their intelligence gathering revealed something disturbing. Kravix wasn't satisfied with just blacklisting Timon. The merchant lord wanted to make an example of him. He had put out word that anyone who helped the human would face consequences. And he was planning something bigger, something that would permanently remove Timon as a problem. Jiwoo went pale when she saw the intercepted messages. They're going to kill him. They're waiting for him to dock somewhere, and then they'll destroy his ship with him in it. We need to warn him, Velthara said immediately, and we need to act now. But warning Timon wouldn't be enough. Kravix had resources and patience. He would just wait for another opportunity. They needed a permanent solution, something that would end the threat completely. Jiwoo started typing rapidly on her keyboard, her mind already forming plans. I can track Kravix's communications, she said. If I can get into his network, I can find out where his people are, what they're planning, everything. That would be extremely useful, Velthara agreed. I can mobilize a security team. If we know where the attack will happen, we can be there first. Far away on his aging ship, Timon had no idea that two women were working to save his life. He was too focused on keeping the stellar crane running and finding a station that would sell him fuel. His navigation computer showed a small refueling depot 3 days away. It wasn't much, but the owner was neutral in most conflicts. It was his best option. He set course for the depot and tried not to think about how low his reserves were running. The engine grinding had gotten worse. He would need to fix it soon, or it might fail completely during a jump. That would leave him stranded in deep space, where nobody would find him for weeks or months. As the stellar crane limped through space toward the refueling depot, Kravix's ships were already moving into position. They had tracked the human's course and predicted his destination. This time, there would be no escape. The merchant lord's orders were clear: destroy the ship and make sure everyone knew what happened to those who crossed him. But Kravix had made one critical mistake. He had underestimated what would happen when you hurt someone a human cared about, and he had failed to understand that when a Quarian gave their word about a debt of honor, nothing would stop them from fulfilling it.